Y'all ain't getting nothing for free.
What's up, everyone? It's your boy, The Business, coming back at you live for episode 22 of The Business. Let's be real. Tonight, I first wanted to start off by giving a shout out to all the mothers out there. Today is Mother's Day. I do want to give a shout out to my mother, my wife, my sister, my mother-in-law, Gail, all of you women out there, all my family and friends. This is a very, blessed day for us as children of the world. We don't get a chance sometimes to thank you enough, but know that we're always thinking about you and we're always trying to succeed to make you proud. So with that being said, I want to wish you all a happy Mother's Day. Tonight's special guest is Brandon Smith. I've been lucky enough to witness this young man's life for the entire time. He is my nephew. He is my sister Stephanie's firstborn, and I'm super proud to be able to call him family because of what he is as a person and what he is as a man and what he's been able to accomplish. Like I said, I've actually witnessed the whole time, knowing that he was always going to succeed because he's got that push, he's got that drive. We talk about it, about pushing and trying to succeed and what that means. And I think he's a good representation of that. We're going to talk about his life in Lorraine and what it was like growing up. And then we're going to talk some more about, the life and times of him and kind of go through that, talking about to where he's at today. He just recently passed the Illiana bar and soon after that, 15 days later, got married. And we're super proud of him, super proud of where he's going. And we're going to talk about that. So with that being said, The Business, Let's Be Real, episode 22 begins now. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to The Business, Let's Be Real, episode 22 with special guest Brandon Smith. Brandon, how you doing tonight, bud?
I'm good. How are you, Unc?
Oh, I'm great, man. I'm great. Super excited to have you on tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We had talked about this show, I want to say years before it even happened. You and I've had these chats throughout life, just talking about all the different things for what the future was to hold for you. And we're seeing a lot of those things now start to come to fruition. And, it's awesome to see and super proud of you, man. So I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a crazy, I would say, year over the past, the first few months of 2020, and then obviously everything that the world has been going through over the last year. And then this year has been crazy for me personally. So it's been a really interesting time in my life, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. And I know this past year has been a little tough, but you've been pushing for many years, man, and you've gotten to where you've gotten to, not by luck, but by hard work, man. So proud of you.
A little bit of luck.
Well, things got to fall into place for sure. Things got to fall into place for sure. So yeah, and like I told you before, what I kind of do is bring guests on. We're kind of go through their life, and you just talk about the different things that you've gone through, good, bad, and kind of just let people know about you. I know you personally. Like I said, I've been able to watch it, but I want the people out there to kind of get to know you as well, so.
Yeah. Sounds good.
First, if you don't mind, let's talk about the growth in Lorraine. When you were growing up in Lorraine, what that was like and what that meant to you as a young man in the city of Lorraine.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's funny because growing up in Lorraine, I grew up on the south side, went to Lorraine City schools, for elementary school, was in Clearview schools for middle school, and then ended up transferring to Illyria for high school to play soccer and to be with a group of guys that I had been playing travel ball with and had become, my best friends at that point in my life. Growing up, I think it was an interesting time because, we had heard a lot about the glory days of Lorraine, about what Lorraine used to be like. That was what we were told a lot and talked to a lot about growing up, is what Lorraine used to be like. And growing up, on the South Side, I felt, one, very safe where I was. I felt a sense of community with the folks that I went to school with. I was riding bikes and doing things with my friends, until the streetlights came on. I think, as I got a little bit older, I kind of started to resent it a little bit. I know that that's kind of weird to think about, but just knowing and thinking about what I wanted to do and getting out of Lorraine kind of became my number one priority. And I don't know that I realized, why until I was older, but it was just because, I knew that there was other things out there that I guess Lorraine couldn't provide. And I'm not saying that to degrade Lorraine by any means. I love the city that I'm from. And I think that once I did leave, I came to appreciate it a lot more than I had growing up, simply because of the fact that, I moved to, I would say, some pretty affluent areas, going to Columbus for school at Ohio State, and then immediately moving to Indianapolis and England and California, and now back to Indianapolis, being around. I think that growing up in Lorraine has given me a different perspective than a lot of folks in my circles now have experienced in their lifetime. And I think that that's for the better. I think, going to school with people that didn't look like you, from a racial perspective is a huge thing, and kind of getting some experience outside of, the white picket fence that you see in the movies and everything like that. People come from different backgrounds. Everyone has gone through something different. And I think growing up in Lorraine kind of gave me a really good idea of what the real world is like and what real people go through. Which is why I think I've been able to do some of the things that I've been able to do and have the mindset that I continue to have today, because, things weren't always easy, growing up in a city that I would say once was. And now you see it now, and it's on the up and up again.
Mm-hmm.
I see so much development now that I'm gone. And, I wish I would have seen that growing up, because I would have appreciated it even more. But like I said, I think once I kind of got out of that bubble, one, it was really scary because things were really different. But two, having that different experience enabled me to kind of put a different perspective on things as I went through different challenges and different hurdles in life.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, and I've talked about it in previous shows about how, all the different cultures were there in Lorraine, and it was really something blessed to see. And I think that, you hit on some very crucial points. When by the time you were growing up, it was a different time. It was already in the 90s. I think you were born, 94?
93. Yeah.
93. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 93,
Yeah.
94 time. So it's so that was after the heyday of Lorraine, and Lorraine was struggling at that time. And, it was, the levies had failed at that point when a lot of kids were leaving. I mean, I wasn't even going to school there at the time because of the issues that were going on in Lorraine.
Mhm.
Truly love and respect the city. That's why I always give
Yeah,
them shout outs and try to, show and represent people that have come out of Lorraine and have
absolutely.
been successful as yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of, why I always touch back on Lorraine and want people to know that, it's somewhere where a lot of good people have come from.
Mhm.
And times were good and times were hard, but they made us the characters that we are today.
Right. And that's the biggest thing that I think the city itself has given me, like you had mentioned, with the school system and everything like that, not passing the levies and not having the same resources as other school districts. I think, seeing that in real life, even when I go back home and visit family from, at home, even though I'm not in Ohio anymore, I think that it gives me a different perspective, and it's made me such an advocate for urban communities that, one, are struggling, from an industry and jobs perspective, because if you think about it, that's a lot of what was happening when I was growing up, that I didn't understand. Now I do. But also, being an advocate for making sure that, folks are above the poverty line and that public schools are getting the resources that they need. Because to this day, some of the most influential teachers that I still speak to, at the age of 27, are teachers that I had in Lorraine City schools. You know what I'm saying? These are teachers that follow me on Facebook and follow my life's progression. And I consider them some of the reasons that I am where I am today. You know what I'm saying? So
Well,
there is so much good and untapped potential, I think, in the city itself. So it makes me really excited when I go back home and I see the development downtown, the Black River Landing really coming alive again. Uh,
mhm.
on that side of the city, because growing up on the south side, we didn't always see that, but seeing those good positive things happen to a place that you call home is really, it's really inspiring as an adult, when you had different views as a kid,
Sure.
because you only saw the bad and you didn't understand why it was.
Yeah.
And now, as an adult, having, one, the knowledge and the resources to do something about it, I think is crucial. So it's great to see people giving back to the city, to all communities in Lorraine County, and kind of seeing that rise that I was hoping, we'd see a little bit sooner, but
Yeah.
it's great that it's happening now. So
Yeah. No, definitely. And I'm in with trying to help them out. I definitely want to go there and visit them again soon. I've been pretty tied in with the hashtag Lorraine Proud crew, and talk with Bart Gonzalez and Damian Ferris Montgomery and those guys that are kind of helping lead that charge, and really want to see the city come back. And I mean, it's a beautiful city that's right on the water, so it's like
yeah,
it has some potential there. It just needs to
yeah,
be redeveloped and
yep.
and and let loose kind of thing. So
Yeah,
um
yeah. Like I had mentioned, it's about tapping into that untapped potential, and I think there are finally some leaders in place, both on city council and in the mayor's office, that are doing that job, or at least trying to. So,
yeah, no, for sure. I want to kind of bounce back to you tapped a little bit about it earlier about going to Clearview schools and then making the decision to go to Illyria schools. Can you kind of somewhat talk about and I know we are kind of touching on why you made the decision to go to Illyria, but can you talk about what were some of the decisions that went into you making that transition to go ahead and go to Illyria?
yeah, I mean, I would say it was a super easy decision, but it wasn't. Um, I made some of the greatest friends at Clearview, in middle school. Those are really, I would say, formative years, as everyone says. and leaving that friend group was really difficult.
Mhm.
But, you know, I was really dedicated to playing competitive soccer at the time. You know, I had also kind of just started my journey into the arts that I had never really explored in elementary school. You know, that was something that in middle school was something that a teacher, again, you know, a teacher had kind of tapped into that I never really had done before. So I wanted to go to a school where one, I could play soccer. And Clearview did not have a soccer team, a men's soccer team at the high school. But I also wanted to, you know, I knew that I wanted to be a part of extracurriculars and things like that. And knowing the class offerings from an AP perspective and a PSEO. For those of you that don't know what PSEO, it's post-secondary enrollment option through Lorraine County Community College. You know, that was still kind of just getting started at Clearview, and it was a little bit more developed in Illyria, where obviously LC sits. So knowing that I had that opportunity to potentially graduate high school with enough credits to also have an Associate of Arts degree and kind of take those credits into college with me, that was, you know, I would say that was the predominant driving force. The soccer piece definitely played a part, but I think the driving force was the education, and for that I'm incredibly happy. And I mean, you know, I don't regret my decision at all. Some of my very best friends, a majority of my groomsmen, you know, at my wedding were from Illyria, and friends that I still have from high school today, even though I graduated coming up, you know, on a decade ago. You know, so it definitely was the right decision. But, you know, as an eighth grader, you know, weighing those options, I don't think a lot of my friends at that time understood like what was going through my mind, because I was thinking about things that were not even on their radar, you know, from an educational perspective, thinking about my future and college and all that
years from now.
away. Yeah. Which is how I approach a lot of things in my life. So, for them, you know, it was really difficult for them to understand why I was, you know, leaving Clearview to go what they had in their head to just go play soccer. And that's not what it was. It was a lot bigger than that. But again, I think it was a decision that had a lot more complexities than a lot of folks, I guess, thought. But obviously my family and everybody understood that was what was going into my my thought process.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I get that because of the fact that, like you said, there were some things going on. We had talked about the whole soccer thing, and I knew that you were enjoying soccer at the time, but it wasn't like you knew that education was what was going to take you to where you wanted to be at, you know?
Yeah, it wasn't my be all end all. And I knew that.
Yeah.
You know, and while I wanted to pursue it as much as I possibly could, especially in that time where I was, I guess, in my prime as a soccer player,
sure.
That wasn't the only thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny because some comments are chiming in. I'm gonna post it if you don't mind. Brian Wood talking about he jumped ship, Clipper Pride over here.
My stepbrother. Yes. But he jumped ship too. It was a quick jump ship, but he was jumping ship as well.
We get it. Listen, I mean, and I told you, I mean, I had done the same when I made the move to St. Ed's. So, we understood as a family what your decisions were based on. Now, can you talk somewhat about, and I kind of popped it like it was done, but I really hadn't gone there yet. Now, while at Illyria, can you talk maybe somewhat about, you tapped in a little bit about getting into art. Can you talk about that and some of the groups? I mean, I know you were so working so hard on your education side of things that you even got into National Honor Society and stuff. Like, can you talk about that time then now at of your life?
Yeah. So, I mean, at that time, like you had mentioned, so soccer, I think my sophomore year soccer, I stopped playing competitive travel soccer. I only played for the high school because I wanted to focus on other things. And one of the big things that I started focusing on was music. So I joined choir in my freshman year, went up to the next level choir, and then made, our select group of what was considered the best female and male singers, within the school. And that was kind of like the elite group from a singing standpoint. So, that became something that was very important to me. Obviously with that at school, but then also looking at, musical theater and theater itself, joining the drama club. I was in an a cappella group with 3 other guys that I went to high school with. We did a lot of cool things together, had multiple profiles in local newspapers, regarding our music, auditioned for a number of shows, and had exposure all around the Cleveland metropolitan area. So including, the X Factor, and going all the way to Chicago, through multiple rounds of that audition process, which was, a really surreal thing to go through as a sophomore in high school. But kind of forming that brotherhood within the 4 of us, and doing a bunch of cool things that not a lot of folks get to do. So that was something that, I really enjoyed being a part of, and, wish we had more time, I guess you can say. After high school, we all kind of went on our own different paths, and that's great. Everybody is seemingly doing well. So, but that's kind of what became my focus, outside of soccer, and then also, really honing in on the academic piece. So going to the college, for half a day out of high school, and taking half my college classes, or half my high school classes at LC, to continue trying to get to that associate's degree, and getting as many college credits as I could, because that program is free for high school students. You're getting college credits for free. Essentially, you just got to put in the work. And I knew going into, to college and everything like that, that if I wanted to go, to a top-notch university, I either needed to get a scholarship, or I was going to pay for it myself through student loans. So I wanted to try to save as much money as I could for both myself and my family. And so academics, became a huge part of that. National Honor Society, Scholastic E, receiving. I didn't get my first B on a report card until my senior year of high school. So that was a huge focus in my household growing up. Grades, it had been since we were younger, but thankfully we were pushed, on an academic front, because both of my parents did not have the opportunity to go to college, but they would have been damned if my sister and I didn't have that opportunity for ourselves due to lack of hard work. So getting that push from such a young age, and then continuing that, and then really capitalizing on the opportunities in high school, that's kind of what we were, I was focused on. Was I have this opportunity, I'm going to take full advantage of it. So if that means that I have to not take as many classes with my friends at the high school and take classes at the college, or take evening classes, or, have to leave soccer practice early 2 nights a week to make sure that I was getting to class on time, then that's what I had to do. And that's what I did for 4 years. And by the time we got to the end of college, 3 weeks before I graduated from high school, I graduated with my Associate of Arts, from the community college, and was able to take those college credits with me, to college. So it was a huge accomplishment. And it I know we'll talk more about this, but it knocked an entire year off my 4-year college program at Ohio State.
Yeah.
I was there for only 3 years. I graduated at the age of 21. So I saved an entire year's worth of tuition and got into the workforce, quickly. And again, that's a sacrifice, but sometimes, and I feel like I've done this throughout my life, sometimes you have to just make those sacrifices in order to get to your anticipated next step or your envisioned next step. And it's not always fun, and it's definitely not easy, but from my experience, most of the time it's been worth it.
Yeah. No, definitely, dude. And I mean, those are the things I guess that, some people need to understand. Like, this is why I'm kind of bringing you on and kind of talking about, some of the things you went through and how you were able to work through, making it to a different school district, trying to work hard, working hard to get that AA. And it was funny because we always laugh about that you graduated from college before you even graduated from high school, kind of thing. Like you had an AA already from college, and you hadn't even had your high school degree. And that was a crazy time, I guess, like, leading up to, I want to say probably end of sophomore year, junior, senior year, you started visiting colleges, and you started like putting certain colleges on your radar. You had some majors in mind of what you were going to do. I know that those majors changed once you went to school. Can you talk somewhat about like the visitation process, like how some of the schools you may have visited, and like what really hit home for you and made you decide on where it was you were going?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So my anticipated major for the longest time, and you can attest to this, since I was a kid, I talked about being a doctor. Papa, your father is a surgical nurse. I've always looked up to him. He's always been a huge mentor of mine. I wanted to work in healthcare. I wanted to help people. That's the way I thought I was going to be able to do it. My senior year of high school, I did an internship at the Cleveland Clinic. Having one of the top hospitals in the world right down the street, in the Cleveland metropolitan area is a huge asset. So having that multi-week internship experience, getting to shadow real life physicians and surgeons, and kind of getting an understanding of what being a doctor looks like, and not just what you see on TV or what you read about. It kind of started to put things into perspective for me a little bit. So I'm a very emotional person. I always wear my heart on my sleeve. You always know how I'm feeling. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to let you know what I'm thinking, when I'm thinking it, for better or for worse. And that's just who I am. That's always who I've been. And seeing the emotional toll that caring for patients, especially in the pediatric sector, because the type of doctor I wanted to be a pediatric cardiologist. I wanted to focus on children with heart disease or, heart problems as they were growing up, etc. And I remember my first pediatric cardiologist rotation through my internship at the Cleveland Clinic, and I met a child and his mother, and the child had been on a machine essentially that was pumping the blood through his body as his heart, essentially, until he was able to receive a transplant. And seeing the emotional toll that it had taken on his mother, who, was graceful enough to talk to us and kind of let us know what their family's experience had been up until that point. And seeing the toll that it was taking on the doctor, to care for, this 6-year-old boy that may or may not live to see 10 years old and has a machine, functioning as a heart for him. It just made me realize that I didn't have the emotional capacity to be in a profession that was going to be that tone. Because after that day, I was drained. I was exhausted, like emotionally, physically, mentally. And that's when the wheels started turning. Like, I don't know if this is actually what I want to do with the rest of my life, because I don't know if I want to wake up every day and go through this. Like, yeah, the highs would be super high, saving somebody's life, but the lows I think would be too low to go through on a consistent basis. And I don't think I'm built for that. Yeah. So when I went to, when I was starting to think about colleges, I was thinking about, obviously the science major still, because I was still thinking some form of healthcare, some form of something so that I can continue to help people. But also started kind of getting into more of the business aspect. I had my senior year of high school, I started working at Apple. And that kind of changed my perspective a little bit as well. Because Apple was such a well-run business from even a retail front. And the development and the opportunities that I was given at the age of 18 at Apple were, huge. I think that kind of started the wheels turning in the business direction too. So when I was touring colleges, in my mind, it was going to be a double major in some form of life science and some business specialty. So when I kind of made that decision that that's what I was kind of going for, I started looking at programs in schools that I knew, one, had good programs of that, but also that had some form of connection to me or to my journey. So the 3 schools that I really narrowed it down to were the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. Growing up, I was a huge Notre Dame fan because of my grandfather. He's a huge Notre Dame fan, has been his entire life, still is to this day. We toured the campus together when I was just a freshman in high school, and it was incredible. It was beautiful. I did a competitive soccer camp there with one of my best friends. I absolutely loved the campus. And for a long time, that was my number one school. And then my choices also came down to, I was looking at the University of Florida, which again was a huge school on my radar. I had toured the campus. I had gone to a game with you and Aunt Ashley. I had kind of experienced what being a Gator would be like. I thought that was amazing. I ended up not applying there just because they didn't have exactly what I was looking for from an educational standpoint. But the other 2 schools that I kind of focused on were the University of Miami in Florida and the Ohio State University, which is funny because Ohio State I had always rooted against Ohio State growing up because I think I just wanted to be a rebel. You know what I'm saying? I think I just wanted to go against the Buckeyes because that's who everybody at my school and everybody around me growing up had rooted for my entire life. And I was just like, I don't want any part of that. But obviously things changed when I toured the campus and got a little bit more in depth about the programs and everything like that.
No, yeah, that was a funny time because I remember you being back in high school and really not wanting to go the same route as your friends because of that fact, because it was like, it was like almost, obnoxious how much those Buckeye fans are Buckeye fans when they're home. That's kind of the way things are sometimes.
Yeah.
But
it's just like the Gator fans in Florida, the Bama fans in Bama. You know what I'm saying? It's just anywhere.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be different. So,
yeah.
that's kind of what it was.
I get it. You know, I'm gonna post some messages up here. Papa popped in. He's like I always told you, you have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about him and how much of a mentor that man is to you, and
Yep.
you know personally what he's been able to do for me, so it's like,
yeah.
it's funny, some
Yep.
other people chiming in, Mike Davies, he's saying he's experienced something very similar, your buddy Mark Fairbanks has popped in. He said, "OH."
Yeah.
Is that your mom responded right away and said, "IO."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to kind of, I guess this is a natural building point from the college discussion. So I had narrowed it down to the 3 schools: University of Notre Dame, University of Miami, and Ohio State. Because I fell in love with Ohio State when I went to their campus. I thought Miami's educational programs were great. And we had toured the campus together. That was, actually the weekend you asked me to be Gavin's godfather, when he was still expected. So, I had toured Miami, with the family down there. I had toured Ohio State, loved it, obviously loved Notre Dame. I applied to all 3 schools, and, I was fortunate to have been accepted to all 3, with my number 1 choice being the University of Notre Dame. And that was the first acceptance package that I got. And I remember getting it, and I was like super emotional. And I called Papa and I was like, "Oh my God, I got in," because Notre Dame at that time had an acceptance rate of only like 9% of all applicants, so the fact that I had gotten in was just like unbelievable a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Like, I knew I had worked my ass off in high school, but like still just seeing like, that acceptance letter was huge. And I also remember, as I'm going through the packet, one of the things that kind of, I wouldn't say ruined the experience, but definitely changed the experience for me, because I thought, when I got into Notre Dame, that was where I was going. I didn't care how much it was. I was going to be a Fighting Irishman. And what I had realized after going through all of the material is that Notre Dame would not accept any of the post-secondary enrollment option college credit that I had received from LC. So the 62 credits that I had worked my ass off for in high school to get an associate's degree required a waiver, and all those classes that I had taken would need to be retaken at Notre Dame. And I thought it was a mistake at first. And I remember that day calling the admissions office and talking with my admissions counselor. And something that's, I remember this conversation like it was yesterday, even though it was, quite some time ago. But I asked about this, and I was like, I just wanted to make sure I have a clear understanding of what this is asking me to do, from a waiver perspective. And the Notre Dame admissions counselor said to me on the phone, "No, the waiver, as you understand it, is correct. You need to waive all of that credit, because if you're going to come to Notre Dame, you're going to get a Notre Dame education." Which to me left a really sour taste in my mouth, because, obviously Notre Dame is a well-respected university. My father-in-law went there. I wanted to go there for, a majority of my life, but I just felt that they were kind of disrespecting what I had done in high school. And the fact that I had gotten to where I was to be accepted into Notre Dame was because of a lot of those classes that I had taken. And I didn't feel that it was fair for me to have to waive 62 credits. So to pay for a Notre Dame credit hour. And so at that point I said, well, my credit is not going to go to waste, so I made the difficult decision to decline admission, which, not a ton of people do, but in my unique situation was something that I saw as a necessity, because I didn't work like that in high school. I didn't make those sacrifices for it to be for nothing. And then for me to then go and have to pay, for an extra year of school on general education classes that I didn't need. So Miami had said they would have accepted all of my credit. They also gave me a 50% tuition scholarship, which, being a private institution in an out-of-state school, was huge for me, which basically knocked admission down to pretty comparable rates of Ohio State. But I kind of knew that when it was down to Ohio State or Miami, that my heart was in Columbus, and that even though I had grown up not despising the school, but going against the Bucks for as long as I had, that I was going to have to swallow my pride a little bit, because that's where I knew was home for me.
Sure.
And so I made that decision to become a Buckeye. And to this day, I think it's still one of the best decisions I've ever made. So
Truly. It's tough, man. It's tough to. I mean, we've talked about the whole, Notre Dame situation before, you and I personally, and that was tough to kind of let those credits go and let it be that, that time didn't even count for anything really. Like, nah. And somebody else chatted about that. Like Mike Davies popped back and he was like, "That's a well-rounded school." He's like, "But credits are credits. So erase them doesn't make no sense." And it's tough. It's tough to make that decision because of the fact that, like you said, you were accepted to, one of the top schools in the country, man. And I mean, it's a great honor.
My number one choice, my number one choice, I wanted to be there. I wanted to go there. But everything happens for a reason. So
yeah, no, definitely. I guess now if we could chat somewhat about now it's after high school, you've made the decision now to go to Columbus. Can you somewhat talk about what that transition was like when you first got to Columbus? And I know that you rushed and you did all that kind of stuff. Can you somewhat talk about that and some of the fraternities maybe also as well that you got into to kind of get yourself like?
Yeah. So I was accepted into the honors college, which meant that I was in my majors right away. I didn't have to apply for them. I didn't have to take any extra credits or anything like that. All of my credit from LC transferred. And my first semester of college was really difficult. I am not even going to lie. It was a time of transition for me because, one, I had not been that far away from home before, even though it was, only a 2.5 hour drive south on 71. But I also was just like figuring a lot of things out, you know what I'm saying? Because I was trying to figure out who I was outside of Lorraine, who I wanted to be outside of Ohio State eventually. So looking at the different programs that we had, at Ohio State, I made the decision to drop the biology major that I had gone in with. So as I had mentioned before, I went in with the life sciences major and the business major. And I just made the decision my first semester that I was going to drop the biology major because it just wasn't, my heart wasn't in it. I had shadowed a few doctors at the OSU Wexner Medical Center. And while that was a great experience for me, it also kind of just made me realize again that this necessarily wasn't my path, like I had thought it was. And I had to figure that out by myself, I think, outside of, the pressures of high school, of my parents, of everybody, and I'm not saying that my, parents try to pressure me one way or the other, but I think I needed to figure that out for me. So my first semester, my freshman year, I dropped the biology major. But I still was, I would say, in a really weird spot. I was working a lot because, I had transferred to an Apple store down in Columbus. So I was working a lot. I had a full schedule, and also trying to balance the full schedule with the work schedule and a social life, or trying to develop some social life, was hard on me. And after that first semester, after years of, great academics. I was on academic probation, sitting with a 2.25 GPA, which is something that had never, ever anticipated or expected. Going into college, I thought it was just going to be like what it was in high school, and it was totally different. You had to study differently. You had to pay attention in class differently. It did not come as easy to me as it had prior. And that was a really tough pill to swallow, and definitely took a toll on me mentally, emotionally. And I just kind of I remember winter break. I was just like so ready for winter break. It was my 19th birthday, and I just remember it being like the worst birthday of my life. I was sick. I was at work, and I just like came back to campus, and it was late because I was part of the closing team, and just on the bus back to my dorm. And I was just thinking like how unhappy I was, just like with everything. And I just decided I got to make a change. I gotta do something different. So my second semester of my freshman year, I rushed my business fraternity, Pi Sigma Epsilon, and became a member of that. And it introduced me to a whole new group of friends and experiences that I was more so looking for in college. And then, going back home, that summer and kind of rolling into my sophomore year, I knew I kind of wanted to continue building on the progress that I had made in the spring semester of my freshman year. So I decided to rush a social fraternity, and accepted a bid my sophomore year, and became a member that semester of Sigma Alpha Epsilon. And that was a huge turning point for me because, some of my best friends in college were in the fraternity, and it again opened me up to a brand new group of folks that I had, that I wanted to expand my horizon. And I think where I was stuck a little bit in my freshman year was that I was hanging out like almost exclusively with people from back home that were also at Ohio State. And I think I needed to kind of disconnect from that group a little bit and move into my own circle and path. And that's what I did. So, moving on to being a part of groups and extracurriculars and Greek life and being involved in all that totally changed my college experience. So my sophomore year was amazing. My junior year / senior year, because that was my last year at Ohio State, was incredible, both from a personal standpoint and an academic standpoint. I got my grades up. I graduated well over a 3.0 GPA by the time I ended my junior year, which was a huge jump, obviously, from that first semester. So being a part of those groups and kind of forging my own path was, I think, a huge thing for me. And then obviously, with those experiences and leveraging some of those things, I was able to secure an internship at RollsRoyce Aerospace for the summer between my sophomore and junior years, which then led to a full-time offer after graduation.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna ask about all that because I was talking about the transition. I know that when you talk about how hard you worked at Ohio State, and to finish your degree within 3 years, while working 30 hours a week, and right now, 32 hours a week is considered full time. So you were working right under full time hours. I know some people work a lot more than that now. You and I included, you know what I'm saying? And then you talked about the internship at RollsRoyce. Can you talk somewhat, I guess, about, what like that internship meant to you and what the future held from that internship? Because you were able to get into a program with them, and then, they offered you something after school. Can you talk about that program?
Yeah, it was interesting. Going to the career fair and kind of talking to a number of companies and getting interest from a number of companies because of my experience and my extracurriculars at that point. I was kind of drawn to RollsRoyce, and I'm not even going to lie, because of the name. You think, oh my gosh, RollsRoyce, it's like, these bomb ass cars, top level, and then coming to realize when you actually talk to them that, they're not in the car business anymore, that, what we're talking about is aviation, defense aviation, marine, nuclear, you know what I'm saying? Different power systems that were not necessarily on my radar, but I found super interesting. So one of the great things about RollsRoyce was, their internship required a 3.0 GPA, which at that point I did not have because I was still working on rehabbing my GPA from that awful first semester. But what they did was they used my GPA from LC. So I graduated from LC with a 3.9 and graduated with my AA with honors. So they took that as my college GPA and just kind of subbed it in, which I thought was awesome, and super flexible because they wanted me to be a part of the company. So that summer I worked in our power system, in the RollsRoyce Power Systems facility that was at that time located in Mount Vernon, Ohio, about 45-ish minutes north of Columbus. So I decided to stay in Columbus that summer and commuted to work every day to my internship. And it was a very good internship. It made me learn a lot. I had never been in a business environment like that ever, but made some really great professional connections, but also some great personal friends in that process, which, because of my performance and the different projects that I was able to work on over that 12-week internship, kind of led to me being a part of the interview process for what was called the Operations Management Graduate Program, which would have started after I graduated. So at the end of the 12 weeks, I interviewed, for that program, because one of the big calling card features, I would say, of the program was an international assignment, which I thought would be huge on a resume and a great life building experience, because I, at that point, had never been out of the United States, and RollsRoyce is based in England. So I was thinking, well, let me try to go for this, and ended up being the only US grad selected for that particular program, and started it, right after I graduated, essentially. So, I was very fortunate for the internship experience and the professional experience and skill sets that I developed and gained over those 12 weeks. But I think then moving into that graduate program was the next big step, in my journey. And that was another, huge challenge and hurdle, that was forthcoming.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I mean, that's what, all of your work that you had leading up to this point now, it was starting to come together for you leading into that RollsRoyce position. I know you had gotten some certifications like leading up to when you got out of school, and then you started to travel for them, because you pretty much traveled like right away. You were doing like 6 month bids
Yep.
here in the States and in a couple of different regions, and then you did one abroad. And can you kind of somewhat, I guess, then talk about, like, once you joined RollsRoyce, starting that position that you started to elaborate on, like you started to talk about it, and like what that position really entailed?
Yeah. So I think, that was a huge pivotal moment in my professional and personal life. So right after school, my first assignment was in Indianapolis, which is where I still am today. So no longer with RollsRoyce, but I'll talk a little bit on that. But my first assignment was in Indianapolis, and it was going to be for 9 months, followed by a 6-month rotation in England, and then a 6-month rotation in Oakland, California. The first few months, well, I would say the first couple weeks living by myself in a brand new city, 4.5 hour drive from Lorraine, 2-hour flight to my mom down in Florida. That was really difficult because I felt very, very isolated at first because I didn't know anybody here. I don't have family here in Indy. I didn't know anybody that was working at RollsRoyce with me at that time. I quickly made friends through RollsRoyce because, a bunch of us started at the same time, all fresh out of college. So we did a lot of social things outside of work. So that kind of helped bridge the gap a little bit from living at home, living at college to now I'm living by myself. I'm an adult. I have responsibilities.
Which
just kind of smacked me in the face a little bit at first. So that helped. And the first few months of work were really difficult as well. So my first attachment in Indianapolis was on a shop floor at one of RollsRoyce's newer facilities for manufacturing a specific kind of engine for a fighter jet for the United States Air Force. And I had to be at work, at 5:45 in the morning. I was working, 8.5 hours on my feet because while I wasn't doing manual labor on the floor, I was managing the floor and the union workers on there. So they happen to be UAW workers, which obviously my father is a UAW worker. My grandfather is a retired UAW member. My uncle is a UAW member. So, I had a little bit of an in with the union folks so that I wasn't looked at as corporate, when I was going through and managing different tasks and workflows. But, I had some really difficult leadership within the plant itself that was not a fan of mine from the get. I was the youngest person in the building by an average of 25 years. So going in and trying to gain some respect from folks that have been with the company for longer than I've been alive was really difficult. And we finally got there, but I think that, and I'm thankful that I had the attachment that I did first because it kind of grinded my teeth a little bit, and sharpened my edges a bit because I didn't have, again, this was a brand new business environment that I had not been in, especially working on a manufacturing shop floor. And I think that having that experience kind of gave me a little bit more of confidence in myself and in my skill set and standing up for myself and speaking up when necessary, but also advocating for myself. I think that that's something that I had not done a ton of. I may have done a lot of these different things throughout high school and throughout college, but I don't think that I had really started advocating for myself until that attachment because I needed to. And I think that sharpening was a really good transition into going to headquarters in England. So in April of 2016, I moved across the pond to Derby, England for 6 months and worked at corporate headquarters. And it was a fantastic attachment. I was on a very high performing team with a very supportive boss and leader, within the organization. And also, gave me some experience, which kind of has led me to, where I am right now, because that experience kind of made me decide that, one, I wanted to further my education to continue honing in on some of these skills that I wasn't fully mastered at yet, but also thinking about different interests that I had from the different experiences that I had at work. So in my UK attachment, I started working a lot with contracts and negotiations and more working with the legal team for RollsRoyce. And that's when I started thinking about law school. And at one point I was thinking, do I want to go to law school full time and quit my job? Or do I want to see if there's something out there for part-time, for working professionals? And ultimately I made the decision, well, I think I want to look for a part-time program because, one, I'm now accustomed to a lifestyle of making money. Sure. I have bills, I have student loans. I don't want to stop making money to continue my education. I want to be able to do those hand in hand. So I made the decision, okay, I'm going to look for a part-time program, but if that means I have to leave Rolls-Royce in order to pursue it, then so be it. Fortunately enough for me, Indiana University has their law school with one of the top part-time programs in the country right here in Indianapolis. And I knew eventually that I would be back in Indianapolis after my attachments were over. So I made the decision in the UK that I was going to study up for the LSAT. And when I got back to the United States, I was going to take the LSAT and apply to go to law school. So when I came back from the UK, and after traveling all over Europe and eating so much food and seeing the Pope and going through Italy with my grandmother and drinking wine from every place that I could possibly imagine, I came back to the States for a couple weeks, took the LSAT in Ohio, and then moved to California 2 weeks later for my next attachment in Oakland, California. And Oakland is kind of, I talk about it as one of the most difficult periods of my life, because when I thought I was isolated and alone in Indianapolis when I had first moved there, I was really isolated and alone in Oakland and San Francisco. So I lived in San Francisco. The company put me up in an apartment right by now Oracle Park, but what was formerly AT&T Park, where the Giants play. No other young people lived in San Francisco that worked at the company, because one, it's way too expensive. And everybody else lived over the bridge in Oakland, where our facility was based. And I think just being that far away from the Midwest, being an almost 8-hour flight, to Florida, I realized pretty quickly that living out there by myself was not for me. I couldn't do that. I wanted, and kind of put into perspective what was important to me. So yeah, obviously California is the land of opportunities. There's tons out there. I thought for sure when I went to California, I would stay there, because I thought, oh, it's California. Like who leaves California? And I wanted to do nothing but leave California for the entire 6 months that I was there. Because I realized being close to family, being in the Midwest, or at least in a place that was a little bit more familiar, being in a place that milk didn't cost $6 a gallon, was more important to me than, I guess, career opportunities. So I did some great work at our manufacturing facility out there, replanning the shop floor and the flow, and earning my Six Sigma green belt and doing a lot of process improvement stuff. But I'll never forget the day before I was supposed to come back to Ohio, because I was getting ready to move back to Indianapolis. My grandfather had a heart attack, and I thought, oh my God, if I'm in California and I can't get to him and something happens, I'm never going to be able to forgive myself. And I think that that's just kind of solidified for me that I needed to be closer to family. So when that attachment was up and I was able to go back to Ohio for a couple of weeks, and then eventually move back to Indianapolis, where one, I had lived before, where I had a set group of friends, where I knew the folks in the office, knew what I was getting into, and also getting ready to start law school, because I had been accepted, into the part-time program at IU and was getting ready to start that fall. I was ready for a change and to be back. So,
yeah. It's funny because you and I chatted a lot through the San Francisco time and Oakland time, and your aunt and I wanted to come visit you while you were out there, and you were like kind of down about it. You were like, Uncle Tony, I don't know if you really want to come out here. Like,
well, I didn't want you to come out there and see me as unhappy as I was.
Sure. And I think that's, I kind of got it, like and your aunt and I talked about it, and I was like, I don't think he's happy out there. Like, I think because you and I talked about it well ahead of time before you even made that trip to Cali. I was like, you're gonna love Cali. That's gonna be so cool. You're gonna be out there and you're gonna be like, oh, I'm staying in Cali, man. And then and that was your mindset to it. Like, I'm gonna go out here and this place is gonna be so cool. And it wasn't what you expected. And like you said, I think living out there is crazy expensive. But those people that live there, that's not anything to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
for a
there's
gallon
a
of milk
different.
is nothing.
Yeah, Cali people are so different too. I felt like I was in a different country, and I lived in a different country for 6 months.
True.
And I was just like, the mindset is so different out here. I mean, the folks were kind and everything, that I was friendly with, but I mean, it was just a completely different speed, different lifestyle. One that was, at least in Northern California, was not for me.
Sure.
I just think that there was so much hustle and bustle that it was a bit overwhelming for this Midwestern kid. And being that far away from family, because I do have family in California. They're on the southern end of California in San Diego. And I drove 8.5 hours down the coast to see them, because I was like, I need something here, I need something here. It rained. I remember 62 days straight. It rained. And I was literally the most depressed I have ever been in my life, and I've gone through a lot. My parents have been divorced. I've gone through ups and downs at college, At that point, I was just like, I am so unhappy. I need to leave this. This place is not good for me. Sure. And I need a change. So, luckily I was at the end of those rotations and was getting ready to move back to Indianapolis, for a new role that was more aligned with my future career goals, being potentially in legal in a corporate setting, but also back in a place that I was comfortable, and knew I could do something.
Yeah. No. And I mean, like I said, I get that part of it. I mean, sometimes, a lot of people say California is a different world. So I get it. At that time was crazy. I mean, the Midwest and the East Coast, the South, they're their own styles, but they're still kind of homey style. California is a different world, and I get that. I get that, it's not for everyone. And it wasn't for you. So now in 2017, you talked about you touched a little bit about the decision to go to law school. Can you talk about maybe what some of your influences were, like what kind of prompted you to make that decision and truly decide on that was the route that you were going to take?
Yeah. Well, my grandfather, Papa, your father, has told me since I was, 5 or 6, that I was destined to be a lawyer, that I was destined to be an attorney. One, because I know how to argue. and I feel like when I do argue, it's because I feel very passionate about a specific point, or I know that I'm right. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to argue just for the sake of arguing, but I will argue about something that makes sense to me.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily an influence for why I wanted to go to law school, but, in the experience that I had in the UK, working with the contracts, working with the legal team, I just kind of realized that type of work was what kind of motivated me a little bit more than other types of work. And so utilizing those experiences and leveraging, what I had been able to experience so early on in my career, I decided that, if I'm going to continue my education, it's going to be something that I actually enjoy, which is this. And secondly, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it, because at that point I was starting to get a little too far away from the study train, that I knew that it was going to be way too difficult to get back on it. if I made the decision to go back later. And I didn't want to regret it. So I applied for IU in the part-time program. I started in the fall of 2017. I was fortunate enough to get a 50% scholarship. Again, met some amazing people, throughout my time, including, some of my best friends and everything like that, that will be my best friends, I think, for the rest of my life. So it was a great experience. I think that my initial influences of thinking I want to work strictly in a corporate setting, strictly in a contracting role, changed throughout the time that I was in law school. One, because my role when I got back to Indy at RollsRoyce was a role that, one, I thought I would love, but absolutely hated. Like literally could not stand going to work every day because I just hated the work. And I just felt like I was on pins and needles all the time, for no reason. And so I made the decision that I was like, okay, it was my 1L year. I'm in my spring semester of my first year of law school, which is considerably your hardest year of law school. I had made the decision to start a new career at a new company, buy a condo. I was at that point again where I was pressing the reset button again, what felt like, for the third or fourth time in the last 3 or 4 years. And when I made the move to Eli Lilly, which is my current company, like I would say my entire life changed personally, professionally, academically. Like that's when I started really striving in school, striving at work, meeting my eventual wife, my first day on the job there. I think that March 2018 was a pivotal time because it changed my thinking about what I wanted to do with my career, which changed my academic path in law school. It changed my personal life significantly, and it definitely changed my life professionally. To kind of lead me where I am today. I think that once that reset button was pressed in 2018, that I started taking classes on things and topics that were, again, more important to me. I wanted to start focusing on things that made me happy rather than just doing a job or pushing paper. I wanted to be in a career, be in a relationship, be in a class that excited me. You know what I'm saying? I for so long, I had been not doing that. You know what I'm saying? I had been working in high school, in college, outside of college, and at I would say in March of 2018 was when I just kind of said, what am I doing all of this for?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what is the end goal here? Where are you trying to go? And let's just really take a step back as to, why you're unhappy, because I think that a lot of the unhappiness that I had in California was kind of stemming from some of the work, that I was doing. And then,
Sure.
And then it just compounded when I came back to Indy. And even though I was happy in my personal life, I hated work. And I was just like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't deserve to feel this way anymore. So that's when I kind of started thinking, okay, what am I going to do to make me happy, and not what others expect of me, what will make others happy, So I started taking other classes that, I felt were more in line with my interests. Healthcare law, being in the pharmaceutical industry, was something that was brand new for me. The pharmaceutical industry gets a bad rap, and, I have a unique perspective being a part of that industry now, but also studying the laws behind the industry itself and behind some of our healthcare things in the United States and abroad. So I wanted to take a healthcare law class, and that was one of the best classes I took. I also wanted to think about legal work outside of of my day-to-day job. I wanted to start thinking more about how can I eventually put my law degree and my license to get to that overall goal of what I had growing up. And that is to help people. How can I leverage the experience that I have, the education that that I'm getting to help folks, and not just serve a singular purpose of getting me a paycheck. So taking criminal law classes, taking litigation classes to understand, litigation and small claims and everything like that, taking property law, reading and researching, some of the systemic racism that is built into, the US code around property, and why, communities of color and folks, that have not been given the same opportunities in life tend to stay there, and understanding a lot more of the complexities of some of the things that folks just generalize as big issues, so that's what I really wanted to focus my education around. And that's what I focus, when I'm doing my own research and reading law articles and things like that. I don't, I read the business articles and things like that, but I'm more interested in some of the issues from a social perspective that are important to me, because now I have the ability to do something about it rather than talk about it. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I kind of realized, that yes, I love my job at Eli Lilly. I love the company. I love the culture. My work is rewarding because I know that I am working towards a purpose that is bigger than me alone. But I also know that and feel that I have an obligation with the opportunities that I've been given and the work that I've put in to do something to help folks besides myself and my family. And that's exactly what I plan on doing. And I think that, like I said, once I kind of got my mind right and reshifted my thinking about my own life and what I wanted, I think that that's when things started to click. And that's when things started to fall into place, especially over the last few years. Because it started with me first, but now I'm here and I'm the happiest, that I've been in a very, very long time to do something about things that are important to me and to try to make a difference.
Oh, that's cool. That's what's important, man. I mean, to be happy about where you've gotten to, know that this life and struggle that you've gone through, all the different struggles that you've gone through, have led you to where you are today. And that's what's important. Right. I mean, who would think that, you and I would be talking about all this right now? You know what I'm saying? It's like we've all worked hard to kind of see you get to where you're at, and and I'm happy to put it on display for people so that people get to see some of the tough times you've been through and some of the good times you've been through and where you've gotten to today, just from really hard work alone and some luck, and like you said, and you kept pushing, man. I mean, if you don't mind, can we kind of somewhat, I guess, get onto a personal tip? I'm going to put you solo screen, let you kind of talk about the situation of when you first got to Eli Lilly. You met a young lady on your first day, and kind of what transpired from there.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. My love story, I would say, because I met Carolyn on my first day at Lilly, March 26, 2018. And we didn't talk for the first couple of months, I think because we were both pretty shy. And we worked in the same area under the same senior director. And I think after some time, we developed a friendship after some, young adult social outings outside of work and outside of the pressures of the office and everything like that night. And that friendship, over the summer of 2018 grew into something, much more. And by September, we had finally, fessed up to each other that we felt that there was something more than a friendship between us. you know, we were dating for only 6 months before we moved in together. We have traveled and been all over the place. I knew pretty early on. I think I talked to you about it. I know I talked to my parents about it, that this was the woman that was supposed to be my partner. And I think, she knew it too. And that was what made our relationship so great. And what still makes our relationships so great is that we're so comfortable with one another. We're so open with our feelings. She knows everything about me. I know everything about her. We have talked about the good stuff, the bad stuff. We have gotten into deep conversations about, how certain things make us feel, about issues outside of our family. How we eventually want to raise a family and to be a family unit, going out into the world and everything like that. And I think, that strong foundation and building that with, someone that had quickly become one of my best friends into a romantic partner was such an enlightening experience, because I had never experienced anything remotely like that in any other relationship that I had prior to Carolyn. And fast forward, from starting to date in 2018 to now, 2 weeks ago, we got married, in front of all of our family and friends. And I think that is probably the thing I'm most proud of, because I think it took a lot of work for me to get to a place where I could make somebody else happy. And I'm so happy that that person is her. So, and I'm sorry for getting emotional. I just
don't get emotional. You're fine. You're fine, Bubba. I know you're happy, man, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
Um.
So it's just one of those things that you kind of put some perspective on it. When you look at all the things that you've gone through, and when I look at all the things that I've gone through, it's gotten me to this point. And and I talk a lot about, the different hats that I wear from a professional and personal standpoint, but, this is something that I've always wanted, is to be a husband, to eventually be a father, and I think that because I'm in the place that I am, because I've gone through the things that I've gone through and had the experiences and learned from those experiences, is the reason why I'm able to be talking to you today about all this.
Yeah.
Because I don't think in 2018 or 2017 I would have been able to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the directions you were heading into professionally. I mean, personally, you really hadn't even scratched the surface yet of the person that you are today. And that.
Yeah.
I think the Carolyn situation really opened up a different door for you personally. Like, you had never really had anybody like that in your life that you were able to call your own and you to be exclusive. And, you get that experience with somebody of, some of the people that you've seen throughout your life, so
Yeah.
it's cool. It's cool that you were able to find that and what you guys have been able to accomplish. Your mother's chiming in. She's like,
yeah,
sending love. Miss Debbie, Aunt Debbie, Brandon is one of the most charming young men I know. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So I just think that, some people from the outside may look at my life or the things that I've gone through, and it may be totally different from theirs. And that's why, I, especially being in having the perspective that I have from law school and from, entering the legal profession, I don't want to discount anybody's experience. Everybody goes through something different. Everybody goes through their own challenges, their own working through their own personal demons, their own mental jails that they put themselves in. So I think it's just really important to have empathy. I say this a lot, is to have empathy for others, and really think about, um, what you may be going through is not what somebody else is going through, and vice versa. Um, and to just kind of put that perspective on things when you approach people, when you approach life, because I think that, empathy for others is something that this world is considerably lacking in. And I think that if folks just had a little bit more empathy for one another, then we'd be in a much better place, and folks would have a lot more understanding of their fellow human than they do today.
Sure. And I mean, uh, when we talked about you coming on the show, you of course want to get on roundtables with me and chop it up and debate with people and just give a different aspect on things, and you're definitely going to do that. And I think that kind of with your first show, I really wanted to bring you on, like I said, and spotlight the life of you and kind of the things you've gone through to get to where you are today. And you're such a young man, like, you're still a baby in life, and you've accomplished so much already, and it's truly great to see. I did post it up while you were talking. Your wife chimed in, wanted to send you some love. Much respect,
Yeah.
And it's been great to witness from our side of things. Your aunt was lucky enough to meet you 18 years ago. We're about to celebrate our 16th wedding anniversary, and we hope to see that for you guys in the future. And
it's crazy that you're celebrating your 16-year anniversary when I was your ring bearer, and your son was my ring bearer 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just crazy.
It all comes full circle, man. No, definitely. Let me see. I got some more questions for you. I wanted to. You talked about, I guess. We've chatted about your life with Carolyn and kind of where you've led to at this point. We did talk about getting through law school. I don't know if you talked too much. I don't know if you really tapped on taking the bar exam in Indiana and being able to pass it on your first time, because a lot of people don't. We've known some people that are in the elites that have taken the bar numerous times, and it's taken them many chances to finally pass it. But you were able to do so in your first try. Can you somewhat talk about that?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting question. I think, just to kind of touch on a little bit, more about my personal journey and everything like that. I think, towards the end of law school, I'm thinking about the bar exam and thinking about my next steps with Carolyn and everything like that. I think something that I always try to do is better myself, and I think the stresses of working full time and going to law school full time was starting to drain on me in ways that I had not necessarily realized until January of 2020. And we were putting away Christmas decorations at the condo, having a great day. And all of a sudden, literally out of nowhere, I had a full-blown panic attack about nothing in particular, just full-blown panic come over my body. I was, throwing up, shaking. I couldn't breathe, going to the emergency room and just kind of realizing that, after so many years of, working on my education, on my career, that I was kind of just burnt out. And it finally caught up with me. I had always been able to manage it before, and I was at a place where I physically couldn't anymore. My body could not handle it. And my mental health was not good, because I was so anxious about finishing law school, about getting ready to take the bar exam, about, what if taking the bar exam ends in failure? What does that mean for me? Would all of this have been for nothing? do I want to take it again? Am I going to be that guy? You know what I'm saying? So I just think that all of the hard work that had gone into high school and college and my career up until that point, getting ready to kind of cross that finish line of law school, I realized that the next phase of my own personal development was that I needed to focus on my mental health, and my physical health, and kind of take care of myself a little bit. So while I was doing things that were in that right direction, I needed to take that next step to continue making sure that, I was the best man, partner, worker, eventual attorney, dog dad, son, nephew, godfather that I possibly could be. So I decided, in the spring of 2020, especially when the pandemic hit and quarantine started and everything like that, that I was going to put a priority on my mental health and started seeing a counselor and kind of talking through and breaking down some of the past traumas that I had been through that maybe others would not necessarily classify as traumas. Maybe I did not even classify as traumas until kind of going and breaking some of those things down and working through some of the challenges that I had faced up until that point to getting to where I was, and realizing just how exhausted I was physically, mentally, emotionally. And again, one of the best decisions I made, because, a year into this, I say that I am even a better person. I'm a different person than I was a year ago because of taking that step and just putting that focus on my mental health, because I knew that I needed to kind of step back and say, you know what, I'm thriving in other areas of life, but I need to thrive in this area to tap into my full potential. So kind of through that process and realizing the burnout that I was experiencing, I decided to not take the bar exam in July of 2020, right after I graduated. I did not go right into a study program right after graduation or anything like that. I decided to postpone it until February of 2021 because, one, we were in the process of buying a new home, and I knew that was going to be taxing. But two, with everything that I had going on in work and knowing what I was going through with the house and everything like that, I knew for myself that I needed to take some time to rest, which is something that I had not done before, and just kind of disconnect a little bit, and say, yes, I'm working, yes, I'm doing this, but the added stress, which is an immense amount of stress that comes with the bar exam and studying for the bar exam, was not something that was in my best interest at that time in 2020, especially in the middle of the pandemic. And I knew that, and I would not have recognized that unless I had started going to therapy and thinking about my mental health. So I just want to throw that out there because I think it's so important that we break the stigma a little bit of men talking about their mental health. Sure. And understanding that it doesn't make you less of a man to seek help when you know that you need it. It makes you more of a man and more courageous because you're going to come out on the other side better for it, for not only you, but for those around you, your wife, your children, your coworkers, your friends, your family. So I wanted to just touch on that because I think that's an important step in my journey, especially over the last year and especially around the bar exam, because I don't think, had I not started going to therapy and breaking down some of those things and thinking about my self-care a little bit differently and what was best for me, that I would have just powered through and taken the exam. And I don't know if I would have passed or not. I have no idea, but I know that I made the best decision for me and for my family at that point in time. So after postponing from July 2020 and seeing, my friends and colleagues from law school taking the bar exam and passing it, feeling a little bit of that FOMO of, man, I want to be there. I want to get to that licensure. Knowing that it was eventually coming in February of 2021, I started studying right after the holiday break, coming back from the Christmas and a New Year's break. And luckily, I have a leadership team at work that is super supportive of me and of my goals and development, not only in the office, but outside, and know how strenuous of a task that was going to be for me. So gave me a lot of flexibility, to really put in the time to study. But again, this was a sacrifice, for the months of January and February. I didn't see friends very often. There was a lot of late nights, a lot of dreams and nightmares about taking the exam and failing. I had multiple nightmares about that. But really working my butt off for 8 weeks, and then taking a virtual exam, at home because of the situation we have going on around the world. And fortunately enough, the hard work that I had put in those 2 months after I had the opportunity to kind of decompress and take a few months, to myself and to my family, and kind of get our house set up and kind of just be in our unit, without the stresses of other things besides, work. And obviously wedding planning was a godsend, because I think that's the reason that I was able to pass on the first time, because I went into the entire studying program with a clear head. And with that was able to absorb the information I needed to be successful on the exam.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I mean, obviously you made the best decision by not running, taking that test right away. You knew you weren't both physically and mentally prepared for it. And, you took your time and waited until it was the right time. And obviously things worked out for you. And, when you took it, you were able to succeed and pass it. And that's huge, We talk now about the professional side. I want to come back to the personal side again. I know you touched about the relationship between you and Carolyn. You proposed to her back last year, and then, like you said, there's been a process from the proposal to you guys buying a house to you guys getting Apollo. Like, all these steps have followed through, and now what I mean. You finish law school, you take the bar exam, you pass the bar exam, and just days later, you guys are married. Can you talk about what this past year has been like? Because, you touched on it at the beginning of the show, like, man, this past year has been crazy. But now let's get into that past year and really what's happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I took a huge step personally in my personal journey, focusing on my mental health early in the year, which then, in March 2020, even though I was planning on proposing at my law school graduation, which of course got canceled due to COVID-19, proposing to Carolyn while we were in the process of quarantining right when COVID-19 started, not knowing what a wedding would look like in the middle of a global pandemic. So that was a added stress all in itself. Right before we got engaged, we brought home our first puppy, Apollo, and have raised him since he was a pup, which, if there's one good thing that's come out of the global pandemic, it's the fact that we got to spend more time at home with him, and train him in his, formative months, to become a really amazing companion and dog in addition to our family. So, getting Apollo in February, getting engaged in March, graduating in May, because not only did I graduate, Carolyn also graduated with her MBA. So both of us graduating professional school, then buying a house and closing on July 1st. We made the decision after we graduated that we were going to start looking at a house, and 3 days into our search, we put in an offer and it was accepted. On the house that we absolutely love and adore, and love being at. It all worked out so quickly, so come July, we're moving into a new home. We're also over the next 6 months, not only trying to get our home together, but also planning for a wedding and again, making those contingencies for getting married in a pandemic and making sure, that our guests are safe, that we're safe, while also trying to, maintain some semblance of a social life so that we don't go too stir crazy in the house. But, doing all the wedding planning stuff, then coming back from the holidays at the end of 2020, jumping into 2021 and getting right into bar studying and taking the bar exam, and then having just a few weeks of, limbo, I would say, because that's something that's always stuck in your mind on, because it takes, 6 to 8 weeks for results to come back. So waiting on those results while also continuing to iron out the finer details of the wedding to, come April, finding out that I had passed the bar exam, and then literally 2 weeks later getting married, and now us kind of just enjoying the fruits of all of our labor over the last year and getting ready to go on our honeymoon in a couple of weeks. So it's been a whirlwind of a year, but everything. My mother-in-law always says that 2020 everything came up Smith, because everything that we touched turned to gold. Essentially, I got promoted at work. Carolyn's been obviously thriving at our company as well. So, it was a very big year for us, for our family. And, if I think about where we were even just a year ago, getting ready to graduate and right before we made the decision to buy the house, it's just like, we're in such a different place. And it's crazy how quickly time flies and the things that you go through. So it's nice. We kind of looked at the wedding as kind of the deep breath moment, the sigh of relief, because it was a big celebration of our love with our closest family and friends. And it was at the end of, one of the craziest years of both of our lives. But, here we are and we're on the other side of it now. It's crazy to think that, but,
Yeah,
it was an amazing year. And I wouldn't trade anything. Obviously I am seeing the effects of this pandemic on the rest of the world, on members of our family, our community, both here, both back home in Ohio, for her, Illinois. And I consider our family very blessed and very fortunate, because while there have been a few scares, related, to COVID-19, we luckily have not had the tragic heartbreak that other families are going through. We have not had to experience the grief that other families have gone through as it relates to these crazy times. So for that, I feel very fortunate that we were able to have the year that we had with minimal obstacles.
yeah. No, that's true. You had a great year, man. You've had a great life, dude. Like, you worked your butt off, dude. Your mom popped in. She was like, woohoo, so proud of you. My buddy Kevin popping in, saying he's glad you're doing your thing, bro. God bless you, dude. And Debbie popped in. She's like, as my mother always said, God never gives you more than you can handle and can only make you stronger, So it's
Right.
true. You worked your butt off. You've gotten to this point now to where you're married. You just passed the bar for law. I
get sworn in next week.
Yeah, you're about to get sworn in. Can you Can you somewhat talk about what you think now, like what in your mindset the future holds for Brandon right now?
Yeah. Honestly, in the short term, I think it's just enjoying life and being married for a little bit. I think obviously, I'm very comfortable with where I am in my career, especially being at the age that I am, and I want to, continue that growth, but also, I want to take some time. I want to enjoy this summer and just really kind of, not have anything, I guess, hanging over, not having any specific added responsibilities besides the ones that are now natural, work, being a husband, being a dog dad, being a homeowner. So I really just want to enjoy some of that time. I can't wait to start traveling again. Once things start kind of settling down. But I think, for me, I can't sit still for too long, and I know that. My wife is the same way. We're not people that take it easy too often. So it's a bit of a foreign concept for us, but we're really trying to be conscious and be mindful about it because we know we both need it. But we also know that, we're gonna keep grinding. We're gonna keep working hard at work, obviously, and growing in our careers and hopefully becoming leaders within our company. I plan on starting a bit of a side practice outside of my company to do some normal contracting, wills, trust, and estates work, here in Indiana, but also trying to really focus on volunteer and pro bono hours and kind of go to and address some of the issues that I feel are really important. So I really want to focus on especially juvenile expungements and getting, kids' records clear of mistakes they made through, some obviously fault of their own, but, other factors I think are a big contributing factor when you look at a lot of juvenile records. So really looking into that, really trying to be more of an advocate around some of the social justice issues that I'm passionate about: racial inequality and inequity, building up communities of poverty, ensuring folks have access to resources that everybody, in my opinion, deserves. So I think that I'm going, especially once I'm sworn into the profession, I want to utilize my degree and my skill set to impact my community a little bit outside of work. So that is something I think is going to be my next big thing is figuring out how can Brandon Smith make an impact for the good on the community at large. And that's what I'm planning on doing. But I think for the short term, I think it's taking some time and resting and enjoying life a little bit. And like I mentioned earlier, enjoying some of the fruits of these labors, over the last however many years, but then getting back to work and now taking all that, I've come to achieve so that I can enable the next me to do the same.
That's awesome, dude. No, that's super cool, man. Like I said, I'm happy you were able to come on and kind of talk about your life. Like I told you, we have no time limits here. We've gone an hour and 48, man.
Yeah.
And you and I can do this.
I was going to say, this is a short conversation compared to the many conversations we've had in the past.
That's true. That's true. It's like we try to minimize it for a show, and this is minimalized almost at 2 hours for a show. So it's like if people could understand the conversations me and this guy's had throughout his life, man, it's something to talk about. Yeah, truly proud of you, dude. Proud of the things you've done. Proud of what you're going to still accomplish. Like I've always told you, when I made you Gavin's godfather, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I knew what you were going to become.
Yeah.
You know, and I know where you're
Yep.
going, dude. So,
Yep.
I did want to talk to you somewhat about this show. It is number 22. Some people are chiming in. Debbie Antis, Brandon Smith for president. Don't be funny about that, because that might happen in the next 20 years. That's always possible. Jennifer Novak. I think she had commented earlier, but she had commented earlier through my one page. She had put up about you being a role model for her girls, but it wasn't up there when
Love
she
those
said
girls.
she
Love
loves
those
her
girls.
baby. They're awesome, awesome family. Much respect for the Novaks and stuff.
Yeah.
I did want to talk to you about, like I said, this is episode 22. I never really talked about the numbers of my shows. I did look into what 22 meant in the angel numbers of 22. The number 22 is a master number. It's with energy. It's similar to the number 2. It symbolizes intuition, emotions, balance, diplomacy, harmony, adaptability, redemption, personal power, idealism, evolution, and expansion. That's you. That's you, dude.
Well, thank you. I think that's you, though, too. You know, I think that the things you've gone through have inspired me, through my journey. So I think that a lot of those things that you just described is us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but that's pretty cool. That is the significance of that number on this episode for this is a newer journey for you, a newer venture for you that I know, you were anxious about and everything. So I'm happy that I was able to be the guest on number 22.
Man, appreciate you, dude. Your mom did chime in, so I love you both.
Yeah.
Love you too.
Yep.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yep.
But yeah, and what I'm going to do now with you, I do it with everybody on the show, so you're not going to be no different. I do a situation called Pick Your Poison, man.
Okay.
I ask 3 questions at the end of the show, kind of funny questions. Sometimes the answers are obvious, sometimes they're not. But I ask it to kind of be funny, because sometimes they're almost like a mutual show to where, like a mutual question to where it's like, I take both, kind of thing.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to do Pick Your Poison with you now. I know you and I are big sports fans. We do talk about the fact that we're both huge basketball fans and huge football fans. But if you had the choice of basketball or football, what do you choose?
Football. No questions. Yep.
No
questions about that. My brownies and my Bucks all day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love sports as a whole, you know that, but I mean, I'm a football man too. Like,
my favorite athlete of all time is LeBron James, but he's so much more than basketball. So, yeah, I would say football.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question I'm going to ask is, professional question: business or law?
Oh, that is interesting, because I think they intertwine very frequently. I know this is kind of a crappy answer, but I would have to say business law, because when you're working on a particular business venture or negotiation from a legal standpoint, it's a lot funner, I guess you could say, than some other legal things you could be working on. Like for me, like obviously accounting is part of business, but I could never be an accountant or a lawyer in an accounting firm, because that is just so dry to me. So I would say mixing a little bit of business with law.
No, cool. And then, really, my last question is Indiana or Ohio State?
Ohio State. I thought you were talking about states for a second.
So I had to ask the question,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll definitely root for the Hoosiers when they're not playing my Bucks. And as you can see in my background, my wife is a Boiler, so I'll root for the Boilers if they're not playing my Bucks. Yeah. But nobody comes before the Bucks.
Yeah. Oh, man, I get it, man. Appreciate you, dude. So happy to have you on. Like I said at the beginning of the show, this is just the beginning. I just wanted to kind of have you on, have you tell your story. And then, you're going to be on so many shows, dude. It's going to be fun. Right? You won't even be a guest anymore. You'll be like a staple to the show,
Well, I'm happy to be introduced, happy to be part of it, and I'm really excited about future discussions. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, man. You take care of yourself. Tell Miss Carolyn hello, and we love her, and I hope she's having a great, doggy mom day too as well. So,
oh yeah,
you guys take care of yourselves. I'm gonna drop you backstage and kind of do my outro to the show, man.
All right, thanks, Hank.
I love you, bud. Yeah, so that's Brandon Smith, man. Super proud of that kid. Super proud of what he's been able to accomplish. Sorry, I got a little emotional for you all there at the end. We're just two, very close people to each other. Been that way since he was born, So always, we'll be watching his life and where he goes from here. Super excited to see what the future holds for him and his family and Carolyn. And, they're two awesome kids. We're so happy to see them joined as one. A couple weeks ago, my kids were able to be a part of it. They were so happy to do so. And we just had such a great time, So love you guys. Appreciate you. Did want to give a shout out to the mothers once again. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Know that your kids love you, that they respect everything that you do. Even if we don't tell you all the time, we love you every day. So with that being said, I just want to give a little quote for the night. My quote is really just truly stick to hustling, work hard, keep pushing, because you never know what you're going to get. With that being said, the business, let's be real, episode 22, over, out.